Stop waiting for motivation. Start winning. Written and published by Vox Reads. Introduction. Stop waiting. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now. Most people are not stuck because they lack talent. They are stuck because they are waiting to feel motivated. They believe motivation comes first, then action follows. That belief is the trap. Motivation is not something you find. It is something that appears after movement, and the longer you wait for it, the longer your life stays the same. This book exists for one reason: to break that cycle. If you have ever told yourself, "I will start when I feel ready," this audiobook is for you. If you have goals you think about but never fully act on, this audiobook is for you. If you feel capable of more but struggle to be consistent, this audiobook is for you. This is not a book about hype. It is not about chasing emotional highs, and it is not about waiting for perfect conditions. This is a book about winning on ordinary days, on tired days, on days when motivation does not show up, because those days decide everything. You do not need a new personality. You do not need more confidence. You do not need a sudden burst of inspiration. You need a system for action. You need discipline that works when emotions fade. You need a mindset that moves forward, even when it feels uncomfortable. That is what this book gives you. Each chapter is designed to shift the way you think about progress, not in theory, but in practice. You will learn why motivation is unreliable, why discipline is misunderstood, and why consistency matters more than intensity. You will learn how winners act before they feel ready, how they build momentum without waiting for confidence, and how small daily actions create massive long-term results. This audiobook will not overwhelm you. It will guide you. The ideas are simple. The language is clear. The focus is action, because clarity beats complexity, and movement beats motivation. As you listen, you may feel resistance. That is normal. Change always challenges comfort. Growth always demands responsibility. This book will ask you to stop blaming circumstances, to stop negotiating with your moods, and to stop delaying the life you know you are capable of living. Not harshly, but honestly. You will be reminded that time is passing anyway, that waiting has a cost, and that winning is a daily decision, not a feeling. You do not need to listen to this audiobook perfectly. You do not need to remember every word. You only need to be willing to act on what resonates. One idea, one habit, one decision at a time. Momentum does not start with motivation. It starts with movement, and once you move, something changes. Clarity appears. Confidence grows. Identity shifts. This book is your reminder that progress is available now, not later, not when conditions improve. Now, so listen closely. Listen calmly, and most importantly, listen with the intention to act, because by the end of this audiobook you will no longer be waiting for motivation. You will be building momentum, and that is how winning begins. Chapter 1. The Motivation Myth. Most people believe motivation is the starting point. They think it arrives first, then action follows. That belief sounds reasonable. It also sounds comforting, and it is one of the biggest reasons people stay stuck. Motivation feels powerful when it shows up. You feel focused. You feel energized. You feel ready to change everything. Then a day passes, maybe two, and the feeling fades. Life interrupts. Energy drops. Doubt creeps in. What once felt urgent now feels optional. This is the motivation myth. The idea that progress begins with a feeling. In reality, motivation is not the engine. It is the exhaust. It appears after movement, not before. Think about how many times you planned to start something. A routine, a project, a personal change. You told yourself you would begin when motivation arrived, but motivation never came, or it came briefly, and disappeared just as fast. So you waited again. This pattern repeats quietly for years, not because people are lazy, not because they lack intelligence, but because they misunderstand how progress works. Motivation is emotional. Emotions are unstable. They shift with sleep. They shift with stress. They shift with circumstances. Building your life on emotion is like building on sand. It feels fine at first. Then it collapses. Winners understand something different. They do not ask how they feel before they act. They act first. Then the feeling follows. This is not about forcing yourself to be extreme. It is about understanding sequence. Action creates feedback. Feedback creates clarity. Clarity creates motivation. Most people try to reverse that order. Imagine a person who wants to get in shape. They wait until they feel inspired to exercise. Weeks pass. Nothing changes. Now imagine the same person commits to walking for 10 minutes each day. No motivation required. Just a rule. After a few days, something shifts. Energy improves. Mood lifts. Confidence grows. Motivation appears. Not because they waited, but because they moved. This is how the mind works. The brain rewards action with momentum. It does not reward intention. Waiting feels safe. It feels responsible, but it slowly trains the brain to avoid discomfort. Each delay reinforces hesitation. Each excuse strengthens the habit of stopping. Over time, waiting becomes automatic. People begin to identify as someone who never follows through. Not because it is true, but because repetition shapes belief. The most dangerous part of the motivation myth is this. It sounds intelligent. People say things like, "I just need to get in the right mindset," or "I will start when I feel more confident." Confidence does not come first. It is built through evidence. Evidence comes from action. No action means no evidence. No evidence means no confidence. So the cycle continues. This chapter is not here to attack motivation. Motivation has value. It feels good. It can amplify effort. It can create excitement. But it cannot be the foundation. Foundations must be stable. Motivation is not. Discipline is stable. Structure is stable. Commitment is stable. Motivation is a visitor. Discipline is a resident. People who rely on motivation feel powerful one day, and powerless the next. People who rely on discipline feel steady. Not inspired, not dramatic, but consistent. Consistency is where winning lives. Think about professionals, athletes, craftsmen, high performers. They do not wait to feel like showing up. They show up because it is who they are. Identity drives behavior, and identity is shaped by repetition. When you act without motivation, you send a message to yourself. You say, "I am someone who follows through." That message compounds. Over time, action stops feeling heavy. It becomes normal. The task does not change. You change. This is where most people misunderstand discipline. They think it is punishment. Discipline is freedom. It removes negotiation. It removes internal debate. It removes emotional decision-making. You act because the decision is already made. This saves energy. It builds trust with yourself. And trust creates momentum. The motivation myth keeps people chasing a feeling. Discipline builds a system. Systems win when emotions fail. If motivation were required for success, no one would succeed consistently. The truth is simpler. You do not need to feel ready. You need to begin. You do not need confidence. You need repetition. You do not need intensity. You need direction. As you move through this book, you will hear this theme often. Not because it is repetitive, but because it is foundational. Once you let go of the motivation myth, progress becomes lighter. You stop asking how you feel. You start asking what needs to be done. And that single shift changes everything. Motivation will still appear. It always does. But now it will follow you, not lead you. That is the difference between waiting and winning. And now that you see the myth clearly, you are ready for the next step. Because action is not just possible without motivation. It is more powerful that way. Chapter 2. Why winners act without feeling ready. Most people wait for a signal, a feeling, a sense of certainty. They want assurance before they move. They want confidence before they begin. They want clarity before they commit. Winners do not wait for these things, not because they are fearless, not because they are special, but because they understand something most people miss. Readiness is not a requirement for action. It is a result of action. Feeling ready is often a side effect, not a starting point. Think about the first time you tried anything new, your first job, your first presentation, your first serious decision. You were not ready. You were nervous. You were unsure. Yet you did it anyway. And after you did it, something changed. You learned. You adjusted. You improved. That improvement did not come from thinking. It came from doing. Winners accept this early. They do not romanticize readiness. They know that waiting to feel ready is another form of delay, a polite excuse, a socially acceptable form of fear. Fear often disguises itself as preparation. People say they are planning. They say they are learning. They say they are getting ready. But underneath, they are avoiding discomfort. Winners approach discomfort differently. They do not see it as a warning sign. They see it as a signal of growth. When something feels uncomfortable, they assume it matters. That assumption changes behavior. Instead of stepping back, they step forward. Not recklessly, not blindly, but deliberately. They act while unsure. This does not mean winners never think. It means they do not overthink. They gather enough information to move. Then they move. Most people want certainty. Winners want progress. Certainty feels safe. Progress creates results. There is a quiet confidence that comes from acting without readiness. It does not shout. It does not perform. It builds slowly. Each action sends proof to the mind. Proof that you can handle discomfort. Proof that you can adapt. Proof that you can survive mistakes. That proof builds real confidence. Confidence that does not depend on mood. This is why winners often look calm under pressure. They have practiced acting without guarantees. They are familiar with uncertainty. For most people, uncertainty feels threatening. For winners, it feels normal. They have trained themselves to move anyway. There is a common misunderstanding about confidence. People believe confidence creates action. In reality, action creates confidence. Confidence is evidence-based. The mind trusts what it sees repeatedly. When you wait, the mind learns hesitation. When you act, the mind learns capability. This is not about pushing yourself constantly. It is about refusing to wait for perfect conditions. Perfect conditions do not exist. There will always be missing information. There will always be risk. There will always be doubt. Winners accept this as part of the process. They do not ask, "Am I ready?" They ask, "What is the next small step?" Small steps reduce pressure. They lower resistance. They make action possible. This is how momentum begins. One step creates feedback. Feedback creates adjustment. Adjustment creates improvement. Improvement creates belief. Belief follows behavior. Many people want belief first. That order rarely works. There is also an identity shift that happens here. When you act without feeling ready, you stop seeing yourself as someone who waits. You begin to see yourself as someone who moves. Identity changes quietly, but it changes deeply. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop debating every decision. You trust action more than thought. This does not mean you ignore fear. It means you stop letting fear decide. Fear often shows up before growth. It is not an indicator of danger. It is an indicator of importance. Winners understand this pattern. They expect fear. They plan for it. They move with it, not against it. Not pretending it is not there. They simply refuse to let it lead. Readiness is often confused with competence. But competence is built through repetition. No repetition means no skill. No skill means no readiness. Waiting blocks the very thing people want. This is the paradox. The fastest way to feel ready is to stop waiting. Action creates structure in the mind. It turns chaos into sequence. Instead of many unknowns, there is one clear task. That clarity reduces anxiety. This is why starting is often harder than continuing. Once movement begins, the mind settles. Winners know this, so they focus on starting. They do not commit to perfection. They commit to participation. Participation keeps them in the game. And staying in the game matters more than starting strong. There will be mistakes. There will be awkward moments. There will be setbacks. Winners expect this too. They do not interpret mistakes as failure. They interpret them as information. Information improves strategy. Strategy improves outcomes. This mindset removes pressure. When pressure drops, consistency rises. And consistency is what creates winning. If you are waiting to feel ready, ask yourself an honest question. What would happen if you started before you felt confident? Not everything, just something. A small action. A simple step. That step is enough. Because readiness is not a door you walk through. It is a room you build by moving. And once you understand this, you stop standing outside your potential. You step into it. Not because you feel ready, but because you decided to act. That decision separates winners from everyone else. And now that you see it clearly, you are closer to winning than you think. Because readiness is no longer required. Action is. Chapter 3. Discipline beats emotion. Emotion feels powerful. It feels convincing. It feels real in the moment. That is why so many people trust it. When emotion is high, action feels easy. You feel driven. You feel unstoppable. But emotion is unstable. It rises quickly. And it falls without warning. Building a life on emotion is risky. Because emotion does not show up on schedule. Discipline does. Discipline is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not create excitement. It creates reliability. Most people misunderstand discipline. They see it as force. They see it as restriction. In truth, discipline is direction. It is the ability to act without asking how you feel. It is choosing behavior based on values, not mood. Emotion asks, what do I feel like doing today? Discipline asks, what needs to be done? That difference changes everything. Think about how emotion operates. When you feel motivated, you work. When you feel tired, you stop. When you feel inspired, you push forward. When you feel bored, you delay. This creates inconsistency. Inconsistency creates frustration. Frustration creates self-doubt. Over time, people begin to distrust themselves. They make promises and break them. Not because they are weak, but because emotion keeps changing the rules. Discipline removes the rules from emotion. It creates standards. Standards do not care about mood. They exist whether you feel good or not. This is how progress becomes stable. Consider a simple example. A person decides to write every day. If they rely on emotion, writing only happens on good days. On tired days, nothing happens. On stressful days, nothing happens. Weeks pass with little output. Now imagine the same person commits to writing 1 page a day. No matter what. Some days the page is strong. Some days it is messy. But the page exists. That page becomes proof. Proof builds trust. Trust builds momentum. Momentum creates confidence. This is discipline at work. Discipline does not ask for perfection. It asks for presence. It says, show up anyway. Emotion says, show up when it feels right. 2. One builds a future. The other builds excuses. There is a quiet power in acting without emotional permission. It feels uncomfortable at first. Then it feels freeing. Because you stop negotiating with yourself. Negotiation is exhausting. Each decision drains energy. Each internal debate weakens focus. Discipline simplifies. The decision is already made. You do not decide every day if you will act. You decide once. That single decision saves mental energy. It reduces resistance. It increases follow-through. This is why disciplined people often seem calm. They are not fighting themselves all day. They are aligned. Emotion creates chaos when it leads. Discipline creates order. Order creates clarity. Clarity creates consistency. Consistency creates results. This chain does not depend on feeling good. That is important. Because many days do not feel good. Life includes stress. It includes fatigue. It includes disappointment. Emotion reacts to these things. Discipline moves through them. This does not mean ignoring emotions. Emotions matter. They provide information. They signal needs. But they are not leaders. They are advisors. Winners listen to emotion. Then they decide anyway. They do not punish themselves for feeling unmotivated. They do not wait for emotion to change. They act in spite of it. This is where discipline becomes self-respect. Each time you act without emotional support, you strengthen trust with yourself. You prove that your word matters. You prove that commitment is real. That trust compounds. Soon action feels natural. Not forced. Not heavy. Emotion begins to follow. You start to feel motivated because you are moving. You feel confident because you are consistent. Emotion becomes a bonus, not a requirement. This shift changes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries. You see yourself as someone who does. Doing changes how you think. Thinking changes how you feel. Discipline rewires the loop. People often wait for emotional alignment before acting. They want their feelings to agree. Discipline acts first. Alignment comes later. This is why discipline beats emotion. Emotion reacts to the present moment. Discipline builds the future. Emotion asks for comfort. Discipline builds strength. Emotion wants relief. Discipline creates progress. Progress feels better than comfort. But comfort feels easier in the moment. Winners choose progress. Not once, but daily. They do not rely on willpower. They rely on structure. Structure makes discipline sustainable. Simple routines. Clear standards. Non-negotiable actions. These remove emotional friction. The goal is not to feel strong every day. The goal is to act even when you do not. That is where growth lives. That is where confidence is earned. If you want proof, look at your own life. The moments you are most proud of did not come from emotional ease. They came from showing up when it was hard. Discipline created those moments. Emotion did not. This chapter is not asking you to become rigid. It is asking you to become reliable. Reliable to yourself. Reliable to your goals. You do not need to feel powerful. You need to be consistent. You do not need emotional intensity. You need disciplined repetition. Because emotion fades, but discipline compounds. And over time, discipline does something powerful. It turns effort into identity. You no longer push yourself to act. You act because it is who you are. That is the moment winning becomes inevitable. Not because you feel unstoppable, but because you stopped letting emotion decide. Discipline took the lead. And once that happens, progress becomes steady, quiet, unshakable. That is why discipline always beats emotion. Chapter 4. Ordinary Days. Decide everything. Most people believe success is built on big moments, breakthroughs, turning points, life-changing decisions. Those moments matter, but they are rare. What truly shapes your life happens on ordinary days. Days with no excitement. Days with no recognition. Days that feel routine and forgettable. These are the days most people overlook. And these are the days that decide everything. An ordinary day does not feel important. That is why it is powerful. There is no pressure, no spotlight, no urgency pushing you forward, only choice. On ordinary days, no one is watching. There is no applause for showing up, no reward for staying consistent. So people drift, they delay small tasks, they skip simple habits. They tell themselves it does not matter today, and they are right about one thing. One day rarely changes everything, but many ordinary days always do. Progress is not built in dramatic bursts. It is built in quiet repetition. Think about how people imagine success. They picture a sudden rise, a single opportunity, a lucky break. What they do not picture are the hundreds of uneventful days before it. Days of preparation, days of practice, days of doing the same thing again. Those days do not feel special, but they are foundational. Ordinary days create patterns. Patterns create habits. Habits create identity. Identity shapes destiny. This is why ordinary days matter more than extraordinary ones. Extraordinary moments test you. Ordinary days train you. On an ordinary day, it is easy to say, I will do it tomorrow. Tomorrow feels safer, less demanding, more convenient. But tomorrow is built from today. Every delay becomes a vote for stagnation. Every small action becomes a vote for progress. Most people do not fail dramatically. They drift gradually. They stop pushing slightly. They compromise a little. They lower standards quietly. Nothing breaks all at once. Things erode. That erosion happens on ordinary days. No one wakes up and decides to abandon their goals. They simply stop honoring small commitments. They skip the workout. They avoid the task. They choose comfort over discipline. Once or twice does not matter much, but repetition does. Ordinary days are repetition days. They reveal who you are becoming. When there is no excitement to carry you, what do you rely on? Emotion fades on ordinary days. Motivation stays quiet. Only habits remain. This is where discipline proves its value. Discipline shows up when nothing feels urgent. It keeps you moving when progress feels invisible. That is hard for the mind. The mind wants results now. It wants feedback. It wants confirmation. Ordinary days rarely provide that. You do the work, and nothing obvious changes. That is where most people stop. They mistake invisibility for inefficiency. But growth often happens underground, like roots forming beneath the surface. You cannot see them, but they are strengthening the foundation. Then one day something changes. Results appear. People notice. And it looks sudden. It is never sudden. It is the result of many ordinary days, handled well. Winners understand this. They do not wait for special days to act. They treat ordinary days with respect. They know consistency is not glamorous, but it is effective. They focus on what can be done today, not what would be impressive. This mindset removes pressure. Instead of asking, how do I change everything? They ask, what is the one thing I will do today? That question is powerful. It narrows focus. It lowers resistance. It creates movement. Small movement repeated daily creates momentum. Momentum changes how effort feels. At first, effort feels heavy. Then it feels normal. Eventually, it feels automatic. That transition only happens on ordinary days. You cannot shortcut it. People often sabotage themselves by waiting for better days. More energy, more time, better conditions. But better conditions rarely arrive. Life does not slow down. Responsibilities do not pause. Ordinary days are not obstacles. They are the training ground. If you can act on an ordinary day, you can act on any day. This builds quiet confidence. Confidence that does not depend on excitement. You start trusting yourself, because you keep your word even when no one is watching. That trust compounds. It changes how you think. It changes how you speak to yourself. It changes how you approach challenges. You stop seeing progress as fragile. You see it as durable. Ordinary days also expose your standards. When nothing forces you to perform, what do you choose? Do you choose ease or effort, comfort or growth? Your answers shape your future. Here not once, but repeatedly. This is why small habits matter so much. A short walk, a few pages read, one task completed. These actions seem insignificant in isolation, but they send a message. They say, I am someone who follows through. That message reshapes identity. Identity shapes behavior without effort. Once behavior aligns with identity, consistency becomes natural. This is the long game, and the long game is won on ordinary days. You do not need heroic effort. You need steady commitment. You do not need dramatic change. You need disciplined repetition. Every ordinary day is a chance to move slightly forward, or slightly backward. There is no standing still. The direction is subtle, but the destination is not. If you feel impatient, that is normal. Impatience means you care. Choose it wisely. Do not let it push you toward shortcuts. Let it remind you to show up today. Not perfectly, just honestly. Do the work available to you now, not the work you wish you could do later. Ordinary days reward those who respect them. They punish those who ignore them. And over time they create separation between those who wish and those who win. As you move forward, remember this: you are not building a result. You are building a pattern, and patterns are built one ordinary day at a time. Handle today well. That is enough, because ordinary days decide everything. Chapter 5. The cost of waiting. Waiting feels harmless. It feels quiet. It feels safe. Most people do not see waiting as a problem. They see it as patience. They see it as preparation. But waiting always has a cost. The problem is that the cost is invisible at first. Nothing breaks immediately. Nothing collapses overnight. Life continues to move forward. So waiting feels justified. But every time you delay action, something is taken from you. Not dramatically. Gradually. The first cost of waiting is time. Time does not pause while you decide. It does not slow down while you hesitate. Each day passes whether you act or not. When people say, I will start later, they rarely define when later. Later becomes vague, and vague timelines lead nowhere. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into years. Looking back, people are shocked by how fast time disappeared. Not because life moved quickly, but because they kept postponing action. Waiting steals time quietly. The second cost of waiting is confidence. Confidence is built through evidence. Evidence comes from action. When you wait, you do not collect evidence. You collect doubt. Each delay sends a message to the mind. It says, maybe I cannot do this. Or, maybe I am not ready. Over time, hesitation becomes part of identity. People stop trusting their own intentions. They stop believing their own promises. This loss of self-trust is expensive. Because without trust, motivation weakens. Discipline feels heavier. Action feels harder. Waiting trains the brain to hesitate. The longer you wait, the harder starting feels. The third cost of waiting is momentum. Momentum is fragile. It must be protected. Even small actions create movement. Even small delays slow it down. When momentum stops, restarting feels difficult. People underestimate how powerful momentum is. They think effort creates progress. In reality, momentum multiplies effort. Waiting interrupts that multiplier. Each pause resets progress to zero. Then people blame themselves for feeling stuck. But the real issue is interruption. Momentum thrives on continuity. Waiting breaks continuity. The fourth cost of waiting is opportunity. Opportunities rarely announce themselves clearly. They appear quietly. They require action to be recognized. When you wait, you miss signals. Someone else moves faster. Someone else commits sooner. Someone else learns through action. Waiting keeps you on the sidelines. And sidelines do not produce growth. Most opportunities are not lost because people are incapable. They are lost because people hesitate. They wait for certainty. They wait for confidence. They wait for permission. By the time they feel ready, the moment has passed. The fifth cost of waiting is identity erosion. Identity is shaped by behavior. What you do repeatedly becomes who you believe you are. If you repeatedly wait, you begin to see yourself as a waiter. Someone who thinks, someone who plans, someone who intends, but not someone who acts. This identity becomes comfortable. It feels familiar, and familiar patterns are hard to break. People often say they want change, but their daily behavior supports sameness. Waiting protects comfort, but it weakens character. Another hidden cost of waiting is emotional weight. Unfinished goals linger in the mind. They create background stress. You may not think about them constantly, but they are there. Each unstarted project, each delayed decision, each postponed habit, they all occupy mental space. This creates low-level anxiety, not intense fear, just a quiet sense of dissatisfaction. People often misinterpret this feeling. They think something is wrong with them. In reality, something is incomplete. Action reduces this weight. Even imperfect action creates relief. Waiting adds pressure. Action releases it. There is also a cost to waiting that few people talk about. It's regret. Regret is not loud at first. It whispers. It asks small questions. What if you had started earlier? What if you had tried? These questions grow louder with time. Regret is not about failure. It is about unused potential. People regret chances they never took more than mistakes they made. Waiting creates a future full of questions. Action creates a future full of lessons. Lessons can be used. Regret cannot. Many people wait because they fear making the wrong move. They want the perfect decision. But perfect decisions do not exist. Only informed decisions do. And information comes from action. Waiting to avoid mistakes creates a bigger mistake. It creates stagnation. Stagnation feels neutral. But it is not. It slowly moves you backward while pretending to stand still. The cost of waiting compounds. Lost time plus lost confidence, plus lost momentum, creates a heavy starting point. This is why starting later feels harder. Not because you are weaker, but because waiting made the climb steeper. The good news is this. The cost stops the moment you act. You cannot recover lost time, but you can protect future time. You cannot erase hesitation, but you can rebuild trust. You cannot undo delay, but you can create momentum today. Action interrupts the cost. It does not need to be dramatic. It does not need to be perfect. It just needs to be real. One small step is enough to break the pattern. Waiting feels safe, but it is expensive. Action feels uncomfortable, but it is profitable. Every day you choose action, you stop paying the hidden price. And the longer you move, the cheaper progress becomes. Waiting takes quietly. Action gives back. Now that you see the cost clearly, the choice becomes simpler, not easier, but clearer. Because once you understand what waiting steals, you stop treating delay as harmless. You see it for what it is, a cost you no longer need to pay. Chapter 6. You become what you repeat. Every day, you are becoming someone, not by accident, by repetition. What you do once does not define you. What you do often does. This is easy to forget. Because repetition feels ordinary, it rarely feels important in the moment. But repetition shapes identity. Your habits are not just actions, they are signals. Each repeated behavior sends a message to the mind. It says, "This is who I am." Over time, the mind believes what it hears most often. This is why small actions matter more than big intentions. You can think positively all day, but if your behavior stays the same, your identity stays the same. Change does not come from thinking differently. It comes from doing differently. Repetition is the bridge. Most people try to change their life by changing how they feel. They chase motivation. They chase inspiration. Those feelings fade. Winners focus on repetition. They understand that identity is built from evidence. Evidence is created through consistent action. This is not complicated, but it is not easy, because repetition is boring. There is no excitement in doing the same thing again. No applause, no immediate reward. So people stop. They assume boredom means it is not working. They assume progress should feel dramatic. It rarely does. Real progress feels quiet. Consider how habits form. The first time you do something new, it feels awkward. You have to think about each step. Your mind resists. But as you repeat the action, resistance drops. The mind learns the pattern. The behavior becomes familiar. Eventually, it becomes automatic. Automatic behavior shapes daily life. And daily life shapes destiny. This is why repetition is powerful. It removes friction. Once an action becomes a habit, it no longer requires motivation. It requires presence. This is also why bad habits are dangerous. They work the same way. Repeated avoidance builds an avoider. Repeated delay builds a procrastinator. Repeated excuses build self-doubt. People do not wake up one day with low confidence. They build it through repeated hesitation. The mind does not judge repetition. It records it. It does not ask why. It assumes the pattern is correct. This is important to understand. If you repeat something long enough, it becomes part of your identity. Identity then guides behavior automatically. This is why trying to change behavior through force often fails. You are fighting identity. The smarter approach is to use repetition to update identity. Start with small actions. Not because they are impressive, but because they are repeatable. Repeatable actions create momentum. Momentum reinforces belief. Belief strengthens identity. This process does not require intensity. It requires consistency. Many people underestimate consistency because it feels slow. But slow does not mean weak. Consistency compounds. A small action repeated daily beats a large action done occasionally. This is where most people go wrong. They try to do too much at once. They rely on motivation to carry them. When motivation fades, repetition stops. Winners do the opposite. They choose actions small enough to repeat even on hard days. They protect consistency because they understand that repetition is shaping who they are becoming. This applies to everything: work ethic, health, relationships, mindset. What you repeat in each area creates predictable outcomes. If you repeatedly avoid difficult conversations, you become someone who avoids conflict. If you repeatedly show up prepared, you become someone others trust. If you repeatedly quit when it gets uncomfortable, you become someone who doubts themselves. These identities do not form overnight. They form quietly. This is why awareness matters. You may not control every circumstance, but you control what you repeat. Even small adjustments matter. Changing one habit changes the message sent to the mind. Over time, that message becomes belief. Belief becomes behavior. Behavior becomes lifestyle. This is how real change happens. Not through sudden transformation, but through steady repetition. Repetition also removes decision fatigue. When an action becomes routine, you stop debating. You stop asking if you should act. You just act. This frees mental energy. Mental energy can be used for creativity, for problem solving, for growth. Without repetition, energy is wasted on indecision. This is why disciplined routines feel freeing. They reduce chaos. They simplify life. Many people resist routines because they fear boredom. But boredom is temporary. Stagnation lasts longer. Repetition may feel dull, but it produces movement. Movement produces progress. Progress produces satisfaction. Satisfaction feels better than excitement. Excitement fades. Satisfaction stays. If you want to change who you are, Do not start with grand declarations. Start with repeated actions. Ask yourself simple questions. What am I repeating daily? What message does that send to my mind? Is this repetition building the person I want to become? If not, change the pattern. Not all at once. One habit at a time. One repeated action is enough to begin. Once you repeat it long enough, it becomes part of you. And once it becomes part of you, it no longer feels like effort. It feels like identity. This is the quiet truth. You do not become what you want. You become what you repeat. And repetition is always available to you. Every day. Chapter 7. Clarity comes after movement. Most people are waiting for clarity. They want to know the full plan. They want certainty before they begin. They believe clarity comes from thinking. It rarely does. Clarity comes from movement. Action organizes the mind in ways thinking cannot. When you stay still, thoughts multiply. Options expand. Doubt grows louder. The mind fills empty space with questions. When you move, questions shrink. Focus narrows. Energy shifts. Movement creates structure. This is why starting often brings relief. You may not feel confident yet, but confusion begins to fade. Clarity does not arrive as a sudden realization. It forms gradually through experience. Most people want clarity before they act. Winners act to gain clarity. This difference changes outcomes. Imagine standing at the edge of a dark room. You want to see the whole space before stepping in. But the light only turns on once you move forward. Action works the same way. Information appears after engagement, not before. When you wait, you stay stuck with assumptions. When you act, you collect facts. Facts reduce fear. Fear thrives in uncertainty. Clarity weakens it. This is why overthinking feels exhausting. Thinking without movement creates loops. The same ideas repeat. Nothing changes. Movement breaks the loop. It introduces feedback. Feedback is powerful. It shows you what works. It shows you what does not. Without feedback, progress is guesswork. This is why planning has limits. Planning can guide direction. But planning alone cannot create clarity. Clarity requires contact with reality. Reality responds to action. Even small actions create insight. You do not need to know the whole path. You only need the next step. That step reveals the next one. This is how momentum builds. People often say they feel lost. What they really mean is they are inactive. Inactivity breeds confusion. Movement breeds direction. Direction does not require perfection. It requires participation. Once you engage, the mind settles. You stop imagining endless outcomes. You start dealing with real ones. Real outcomes are easier to manage. They give you something concrete to adjust. This adjustment process is how clarity forms. Many people fear making the wrong move. They worry it will ruin everything. In truth, most moves are reversible. Staying still is often the riskiest choice. Because stillness provides no information. It only preserves doubt. Winners understand this. They move before they feel certain. They accept that clarity will evolve. They treat early action as exploration, not commitment. This mindset reduces pressure. You are not deciding forever. You are gathering data. Data guides direction. Each action teaches you something. You learn what fits. You learn what drains you. You learn where your strengths appear. None of this comes from waiting. The movement also changes how effort feels. When you take action, energy increases. When you delay, energy drops. This is not about willpower. It is about physiology. The body responds to motion. Once moving, continuing feels easier. This is why starting is the hardest part. After movement begins, clarity accelerates. Your priorities sharpen. Distractions lose power. You see what matters through experience. This is especially important during transitions. New goals, new habits, new directions. At the beginning, everything feels unclear. That is normal. Clarity is not a requirement for starting. It is a reward for starting. If you are waiting to feel certain, you may wait indefinitely. Uncertainty is part of growth. Winners do not eliminate uncertainty. They move with it. They trust the process. They trust that action will teach them. And it always does. Clarity is not found in isolation. It is found in interaction. Interaction with work. Interaction with reality. Each interaction refines understanding. This is how goals become sharper. What once felt vague becomes specific. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. Not because the task changed, but because you changed through movement. There is also a confidence shift here. When clarity comes from movement, confidence becomes grounded. It is not based on hope. It is based on experience. Experience builds trust. Trust reduces fear. This creates a positive cycle. Movement creates clarity. Clarity creates confidence. Confidence supports further movement. This cycle replaces hesitation. Instead of asking, "What if this fails?" you ask, "What can I learn?" Learning moves you forward. Failure without learning feels heavy. Action with learning feels productive. This reframing matters. It turns uncertainty into a tool. If you feel unclear right now, do not wait. Move, not blindly, not recklessly, deliberately. Choose one small action. Execute it. Observe the result. That observation is clarity. Then adjust. Clarity is built, not discovered. It forms through doing. Once you accept this, progress becomes simpler. Not easier, but clearer. You stop searching for perfect understanding. You start building it. And with each step, the path reveals itself. Not all at once, but enough to continue. That is how clarity truly works. It comes after movement. Chapter 8. Responsibility changes everything. There is a moment in every life when progress begins. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is the moment responsibility is accepted. Responsibility changes how you see yourself. It changes how you see problems. And it changes how you respond to life. Most people misunderstand responsibility. They think it means blame. They think it means guilt. They think it means pressure. True responsibility is power. It is the decision to say, "This is mine to deal with." Not because you caused everything, but because you choose to respond. Life is unfair at times. Circumstances can be difficult. People can disappoint you. Responsibility does not deny this. It simply says, "What happens next is up to me." That shift is everything. When people avoid responsibility, they wait for conditions to change. They wait for people to behave differently. They wait for life to become easier. Waiting feels passive, and passive positions create frustration. Responsibility creates movement. The moment you take responsibility, you stop asking who is at fault. You start asking what can be done. That question leads to solutions. Blame feels satisfying for a moment. It explains pain. It provides relief. But blame does not build progress. It keeps power outside of you. Responsibility brings power back. When you take responsibility, you reclaim influence. You may not control the past. You may not control others. But you control your response. Response shapes outcome. This is where many people get stuck. They confuse explanation with progress. They explain why things are hard, why timing is bad, why circumstances are limiting. These explanations may be true, but they do not move life forward. Responsibility does. Responsibility does not ask if something is fair. It asks if something is possible. That question opens doors. Consider how people respond to setbacks. One person says, "This ruined my plans." Another says, "This changed my approach." Same event, different responsibility level. The second person moves faster. Responsibility changes language. Words like they, because and if only slowly disappear. Words like I will, I choose and next take their place. Language shapes thought. Thought shapes behavior. This is why responsibility feels heavy at first. You cannot hide behind excuses anymore. But that weight quickly becomes strength. Because excuses are exhausting. They require constant justification. They keep you explaining instead of acting. Responsibility simplifies. It reduces life to action. This is not about being harsh with yourself. It is about being honest. Honesty creates clarity. Clarity creates direction. Direction creates momentum. Many people believe responsibility limits freedom. They believe it adds pressure. In truth, responsibility removes chaos. When you stop blaming, you stop arguing with reality. You meet reality where it is. And then you move. This saves energy. Energy wasted on resentment becomes energy used for progress. Responsibility also changes how failure feels. Without responsibility, failure feels personal. It feels like proof of inadequacy. With responsibility, failure becomes information. Information can be used. Used information improves strategy. Strategy improves outcomes. This creates resilience. Resilience is not toughness. It is adaptability. Adaptability grows when responsibility is embraced. You stop defending your ego. You start improving your approach. This mindset is common among winners. They do not waste time explaining why something did not work. They adjust and try again. They do not wait for motivation to return. They rely on ownership. Ownership creates consistency. When you fully own a decision, you commit to it. You stop half trying. Half trying creates frustration. Full responsibility creates focus. Focus improves results. There is also a deep internal shift that happens. When you take responsibility, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances. You begin to see yourself as a participant in your life. Participation builds engagement. Engagement builds meaning. Meaning sustains effort. This is why responsibility fuels long-term progress. Motivation fades. Ownership remains. People often ask how to stay consistent. The answer is responsibility. Not pressure. Not guilt. Responsibility to your future self. When you take responsibility, you act differently on ordinary days. You do not wait to feel inspired. You show up because you said you would. This builds self-respect. Self-respect is quiet confidence. Confidence built this way does not shake easily. It does not depend on praise. It does not depend on mood. It depends on alignment. Alignment between words and actions. Responsibility creates that alignment. There is also a freedom that comes with responsibility. Once you accept full ownership, you stop expecting rescue. This is empowering. You no longer wait for permission. You no longer wait for validation. You act. Action creates evidence. Evidence builds belief. Belief strengthens identity. Identity shapes destiny. This chain begins with responsibility. If you feel stuck, ask a simple question. What am I avoiding responsibility for? The answer may be uncomfortable, but it will be useful. Responsibility does not mean doing everything alone. It means choosing your response. Asking for help can be responsible. Changing direction can be responsible. Quitting something misaligned can be responsible. Responsibility is not rigidity. It is awareness. Awareness of your role in what happens next. Once you accept that role, waiting loses its appeal. Blame loses its power. Excuses lose their comfort. You realize something important. Progress does not require perfect conditions. It requires ownership. Ownership creates action. Action creates change. And change compounds. This is why responsibility changes everything. Not because it makes life easier, but because it makes progress possible. The moment you fully accept responsibility, you stop reacting to life. You start shaping it. And that is the turning point. Because from that moment forward, What happens next is no longer accidental. It is chosen. Chapter 9. Discipline on low energy days. Not every day feels strong. Not every day feels focused. And not every day feels motivated. Low energy days are part of life. They are not a sign of weakness. They are a sign that you are human. The mistake most people make is treating low energy as a stop signal. They assume progress requires high drive. They assume effort only counts when it feels powerful. Winners know better. They train for low energy days because those days appear more often than high energy ones. If your system only works when you feel good, it is not a reliable system. Discipline matters most when energy is low. High energy days are easy. You feel capable. You feel driven. Low energy days test commitment. On those days, emotion says rest. Comfort says delay. The mind looks for excuses. Discipline responds differently. It does not ask for intensity. It asks for minimum effort. This is a critical distinction. Discipline on low energy days is not about pushing harder. It is about showing up smaller. Smaller actions keep momentum alive. Momentum is fragile during low energy, but it is still possible to protect it. Think of momentum like a flame. You do not need to add fuel. You just need to stop it from going out. A short walk. 1 page written. 5 minutes of focus. These actions may feel insignificant. They are not. They send a message. They say, I do not disappear when things feel hard. That message builds identity. Most people disappear on low energy days. They wait to return when they feel better. This creates gaps. Gaps break rhythm. Broken rhythm is hard to restore. Winners protect rhythm. They adjust effort. But they do not stop. This approach removes pressure. You do not need to perform at your best. You only need to perform at your minimum standard. Minimum standards are powerful. They lower resistance. They make action accessible. Once you begin, energy often improves. Not always, but often enough. Movement stimulates the system. The body responds to action. The mind follows. This is why starting is more important than finishing on low energy days. Finishing is a bonus. Starting is the goal. Many people confuse discipline with force. They believe discipline means ignoring how you feel. That is not true. Discipline respects limits. It just refuses to surrender to them. It works with reality. On low energy days, reality says slow down. Discipline agrees. But it does not stop. This balance is key. Ignoring low energy leads to burnout. Obeying it completely leads to stagnation. Discipline finds the middle. It asks, what is possible today? That question shifts perspective. Instead of focusing on what you cannot do, you focus on what you can. This builds continuity. Continuity is what matters. Progress is not built on perfect days. It is built on consistent days. Low energy days are part of consistency. They teach resilience. Resilience is not toughness. It is reliability under strain. When you show up on low energy days, you prove something important. You prove that your commitment is not emotional. You prove that your habits are stable. That proof builds trust. Trust makes future action easier. Over time, low energy days lose their power. They still happen, but they no longer derail progress. This is a major shift. Most people let mood dictate behavior. Winners let standards dictate behavior. Standards do not demand perfection. They demand presence. Presence is enough. Low energy discipline also protects confidence. Skipping action entirely often creates guilt. Guilt drains energy further. Small action avoids that spiral. You finish the day knowing you showed up. Not fully, but honestly. That honesty matters. It keeps self-respect intact. Self-respect fuels long-term effort. There is also a strategic benefit. By practicing discipline on low energy days, you remove fear of them. They stop feeling dangerous. You know you can handle them. This reduces anxiety. You stop worrying about losing momentum. You trust your system. This trust is powerful. It allows you to rest without panic. It allows you to push without fear. Balance becomes possible. Low energy days also sharpen focus. When energy is low, distractions feel heavier. Discipline helps you choose one thing, one task, one habit. This simplicity improves clarity. Instead of spreading energy thin, you direct it intentionally. Intentional effort beats scattered effort. This is why winners often make progress, even when tired. They do not try to do everything. They do the essential thing. If you want to build discipline that lasts, design it for low energy days. Ask yourself simple questions. What is my minimum standard? What can I do even when I feel drained? Answering these questions creates safety. Safety encourages consistency. Consistency creates progress. High energy days will come. They will feel great. Enjoy them. But do not build your system around them. Build it around reality. Reality includes low energy. When you accept this, discipline becomes sustainable. It no longer feels like a fight. It feels like a structure that holds you up when energy drops. And over time, something interesting happens. Low energy days stop feeling like setbacks. They feel like training. Training for real life. Because real life does not wait for you to feel energized. It keeps moving. Discipline allows you to move with it. Even slowly. Even quietly. That is enough. Because showing up on low energy days is what separates intention from identity. And identity wins in the long run. Chapter 10. The Power of Non-Negotiables. Every day, your mind negotiates. It asks questions. It looks for shortcuts. It searches for comfort. Most people lose progress inside these negotiations. They wake up with good intentions. Then the debate begins. Should I do this now? Can it wait until later? Do I really need to do it today? These questions seem harmless. They are not. They drain energy. They delay action. They weaken commitment. Non-negotiables eliminate this problem. A non-negotiable is simple. It is an action that happens no matter what. No debate. No delay. No emotional vote. Non-negotiables remove choice from moments where choice causes failure. This is why they are powerful. Most people think freedom comes from having options. In practice, too many options create paralysis. Non-negotiables create freedom through structure. When something is decided in advance, the mind relaxes. It does not have to argue. It does not have to decide. It just executes. This saves mental energy. Mental energy is limited. Every decision consumes it. When you waste energy on daily debates, you have less left for meaningful work. Non-negotiables protect your energy. They create automatic behavior. Automatic behavior creates consistency. Consistency creates results. This is the chain. Think about brushing your teeth. You do not negotiate it. You do not wait to feel motivated. You do it because it is a rule. That rule protects your health. Non-negotiables work the same way for progress. Winners build rules around what matters most. They do not rely on discipline alone. They rely on structure. Structure outperforms willpower. Willpower fluctuates. Structure remains. Most people fail because they leave important actions open to emotion. They say things like, I will work out if I feel like it. I will focus when I have time. I will start when I am in the right mood. This gives emotion control. Emotion is unpredictable. Non-negotiables remove emotion from the equation. They say, this happens regardless. That statement changes behavior immediately. It also changes identity. When you honor non-negotiables, you build trust with yourself. Each time you follow through, you reinforce a powerful belief. I do what I say I will do. That belief compounds. Without non-negotiables, self-trust erodes. Promises become flexible. Commitments become optional. Over time, people stop believing themselves. Non-negotiables restore integrity. Integrity is alignment between words and actions. That alignment creates confidence. Confidence built this way is quiet, but it is strong. There is an important distinction to make. Non-negotiables are not extreme. They are not about doing more. They are about deciding clearly. A non-negotiable should be realistic. If it is too large, it will be avoided. If it is too vague, it will be ignored. The best non-negotiables are specific and repeatable. Small enough to complete on hard days. Clear enough to require no interpretation. This makes them durable. Durability matters more than intensity. A rule you follow for years beats a burst of effort you abandon. Winners understand this. They protect a few key actions. Not everything. Only what moves the needle. They ask, if I do only this consistently, will progress happen? If the answer is yes, they make it non-negotiable. This reduces overwhelm. Instead of trying to do everything, they commit to the essential. Essentials create momentum. Momentum makes additional effort easier. Non-negotiables also reduce emotional fatigue. When actions are automatic, you stop judging yourself. You stop asking if you are doing enough. You know you are showing up. That certainty creates calm. Calm improves focus. Focus improves quality. Quality improves results. This chain begins with decision. Decide once. Execute many times. People often resist non-negotiables because they fear rigidity. They worry about losing flexibility. In reality, non-negotiables create flexibility. When core habits are stable, everything else can adapt. Without stability, everything feels fragile. Non-negotiables anchor your day. They create a baseline. No matter what happens, you know you honored your standard. This reduces stress. It also prevents all or nothing thinking. On difficult days, people often quit entirely. Non-negotiables prevent quitting. They say you do not have to do more, but you must do this. That boundary keeps you in motion. Motion protects momentum. Momentum protects identity. Identity drives behavior automatically. This is why non-negotiables feel powerful over time. They shift behavior without effort. Effort is front-loaded. Maintenance becomes easy. There is also a deeper psychological effect. When you honor non-negotiables, you become predictable to yourself. Predictability builds safety. Safety reduces resistance. Resistance is what makes habits hard. Remove resistance, and action becomes natural. This is how winners make progress look effortless. Not because it is easy, but because they removed unnecessary friction. Non-negotiables remove friction. They also clarify priorities. What you make non-negotiable reveals what truly matters. This clarity prevents distraction. You stop chasing everything. You protect what counts. Protection creates progress. If you want to apply this, start small. Choose one action that supports your long-term goal. Make it clear. Make it simple. Make it repeatable. Then decide. Not daily. Once. Decision eliminates negotiation. Negotiation is the enemy of consistency. Expect resistance at first. That is normal. Resistance fades with repetition. Soon the action becomes part of who you are. Not something you force. Something you do. At that point, discipline feels lighter. Because you are no longer relying on discipline alone. You are relying on standards. Standards outlast motivation. They outlast emotion. They outlast low energy. They create structure in chaos. This is the power of non-negotiables. They turn intention into behavior. Behavior into identity. Identity into results. You do not need many. You need a few that you protect fiercely. Because when something is non-negotiable, progress becomes inevitable. Not fast, not flashy, but steady. And steady wins. Every time. Chapter 11. Pain now, or regret later. Pain is unavoidable. It shows up in every life. The only choice is timing. You can choose pain now, or you can choose regret later. Most people try to avoid pain completely. They seek comfort. They delay discomfort. In doing so, they unknowingly choose regret. Pain now feels sharp. It is immediate. It demands attention. Regret later is different. It is quiet at first. It whispers. It lingers. Pain now ends. Regret stays. This is the trade most people do not see. Discomfort today prevents regret tomorrow. Avoiding discomfort today creates it later. This chapter is not about suffering. It is about honesty. Every meaningful goal requires discomfort. Learning feels uncomfortable. Growth feels uncomfortable. Change feels uncomfortable. Avoiding that discomfort does not remove it. It postpones it. And postponed pain grows. Consider the simple example of health. Exercise is uncomfortable in the moment. It demands effort. It creates strain. Avoiding exercise feels easy today, but it creates future pain. Pain in the body, pain in energy, pain in confidence. The same pattern exists everywhere. Having difficult conversations feels painful now. Avoiding them creates long-term damage. Saving money feels restrictive now. Ignoring it creates stress later. Doing focused work feels uncomfortable now. Procrastination creates regret later. The pattern is consistent. Short-term comfort trades long-term cost. Winners see this trade clearly. They do not enjoy discomfort. They respect it. They understand that discomfort is often a sign of alignment. Aligned with growth. Aligned with progress. Aligned with potential. Pain now is usually constructive. It builds strength. It builds skill. It builds resilience. Regret later is destructive. It drains energy. It feeds self-doubt. It cannot be used productively. This is why winners choose pain now. Not dramatically. Not aggressively. Deliberately. They choose the pain of effort over the pain of stagnation. They choose the pain of discipline over the pain of disappointment. They choose the pain of growth over the pain of regret. This does not mean pushing endlessly. It means choosing wisely. There is a difference between productive pain and pointless pain. Productive pain moves you forward. Pointless pain keeps you stuck. Productive pain comes from action. Pointless pain comes from avoidance. Winners learn to recognize the difference. They ask simple questions. Does this discomfort lead somewhere? Does this effort build something? If the answer is yes, they move through it. If the answer is no, they adjust. Regret is rarely about effort. It is about absence of effort. People regret what they did not try, what they did not say, what they delayed too long. Regret is heavy because it cannot be changed. Pain now is light because it is temporary. This is a powerful reframe. When discomfort appears, you are standing at a crossroads. One path leads to growth. The other leads to regret. Both involve pain. One is useful. Most people choose comfort because it feels safe. Comfort feels safe because it is familiar. But familiar does not mean fulfilling. Comfort keeps life small. Growth requires stepping into the unfamiliar. That step hurts a little, but it opens space. Space for learning. Space for confidence. Space for progress. Pain now also builds self-respect. Each time you choose effort over ease, you send a message to yourself. I trust my future more than my comfort. That message builds integrity. Integrity builds confidence. Confidence reduces fear. This creates a positive cycle. Regret does the opposite. It erodes trust. It increases self-criticism. It weakens belief. Over time, regret changes how people see themselves. They stop believing they are capable of change. Not because it is true, but because regret keeps reminding them of inaction. This is why regret is dangerous. It locks people into the past. Pain now keeps you in the present. The present is where action lives. Action is the only place where change is possible. There is also a physical truth here. The body adapts to stress. Muscles grow through strain. Skills improve through challenge. Avoiding all stress weakens systems. The same applies mentally. Mental resilience grows through discomfort. Avoidance weakens it. Choosing pain now is training. Training for life. Life will bring pain regardless. Loss, failure, unexpected difficulty. If you avoid discomfort in small ways, large discomfort feels overwhelming. If you face discomfort regularly, you build capacity. Capacity creates calm under pressure. This is why disciplined people handle stress better. They are practiced. They have trained themselves to move through discomfort. This is not about being tough. It is about being prepared. Prepared people fear less. They trust their ability to respond. That trust reduces anxiety. Pain now also clarifies priorities. When you choose effort, you choose what matters. You stop chasing ease. You start chasing meaning. Meaning sustains effort. Effort without meaning feels draining. Effort with meaning feels purposeful. This makes pain bearable. Regret has no meaning. It is only loss. If you feel resistance right now, that is normal. Resistance is the doorway. Behind it is growth. The choice is simple, but not easy. Comfort now, or pride later. Ease today, or peace tomorrow. Pain now or regret later. You will feel something either way. Choose the pain that builds. Choose the pain that teaches. Choose the pain that moves you forward. Because pain fades, strength remains. And regret never asks permission. It arrives when it is too late. Choosing pain now keeps it away. And that choice, repeated daily, is how winning becomes inevitable. Chapter 12. Raising your standards. Your life rarely rises above your standards. It settles where your standards allow it to stay. Standards are not goals. They are not wishes. They are expectations you enforce. Most people think they need more motivation. What they really need are higher standards. Motivation comes and goes. Standards stay. A standard is what you accept as normal, what you tolerate, what you allow, what you repeat without questioning. If your standard is low, effort feels optional. If your standard is high, effort becomes normal. This is why two people can face the same situation and respond very differently. One tolerates delay. The other takes action. One accepts inconsistency. The other corrects it. The difference is not talent. It is standard. Raising your standards does not mean demanding perfection. It means refusing to accept less than what aligns with your values. There is an important distinction here. High standards are not harsh. They are clear. They remove ambiguity. When standards are unclear, emotion fills the gap. Emotion negotiates. Emotion excuses. Emotion delays. Clear standards remove negotiation. They answer questions in advance. Do I show up today? Yes. Do I follow through? Yes. Do I settle for less effort than I know I am capable of? No. These answers simplify life. Many people keep standards low because they fear pressure. They worry that higher standards will feel overwhelming. In reality, low standards create more stress. Low standards allow chaos. Chaos creates anxiety. High standards create structure. Structure creates calm. This may sound backward, but it is true. When you expect less from yourself, you constantly debate. You wonder if you should act. You question your commitment. You feel guilty for not doing more. When you raise standards, those debates disappear. You act because that is the standard. The mind prefers certainty. Standards provide it. This is why disciplined people often seem relaxed. They are not fighting themselves. They already decided who they are and how they act. Raising your standards also changes your environment. You stop tolerating distractions. You stop accepting poor habits. You stop surrounding yourself with influences that pull you backward. Not aggressively, but deliberately. This does not require dramatic changes. It begins with internal agreement. An agreement that says, this is how I live now. That agreement shapes behavior. Behavior shapes outcomes. Outcomes reinforce identity. This is the upward cycle. Many people confuse standards with goals. Goals are future-focused. Standards are present-focused. A goal says, I want to achieve this. A standard says, this is how I operate daily. Goals inspire. Standards sustain. Without standards, goals remain distant. With standards, goals become inevitable. Raising standards often feels uncomfortable at first. Not because they are unrealistic, but because they challenge old patterns. Old patterns resist change. They prefer familiarity. But familiarity is not always progress. Growth requires recalibration. Raising standards is recalibration. It is deciding that old levels of effort are no longer acceptable. Old excuses no longer work. Old delays no longer feel justified. This decision does not require intensity. It requires honesty. Ask yourself simple questions. What do I currently tolerate that holds me back? Where do I accept less than I know I am capable of? The answers reveal your current standards. Change begins there. Raising standards also strengthens self-respect. Self-respect grows when actions match values. When you hold yourself to higher standards, you align behavior with intention. That alignment feels powerful. You no longer feel divided. You trust yourself more. Trust reduces friction. Friction is what makes progress exhausting. Remove friction, and effort becomes sustainable. This is why standards matter so much on ordinary days. On ordinary days, motivation is quiet. Energy is average. No one is watching. Standards decide what happens. Do you default to ease? Or do you default to effort? That default is your standard. Winners do not rely on how they feel on ordinary days. They rely on who they decided to be. Identity is built through standards. If your standard is showing up, you become someone who shows up. If your standard is preparation, you become someone others trust. If your standard is consistency, you become reliable. Reliability creates opportunities. Opportunities multiply progress. Raising standards also filters decisions. When standards are clear, decisions become faster. You stop asking, should I do this? You ask, does this meet my standard? If it does, you act. If it does not, you decline. This saves time. Time saved becomes focus. Focus improves quality. Quality accelerates results. This chain begins with standards. There is another important effect. High standards reduce regret. When you know you gave honest effort, regardless of outcome, regret loses power. You may not win every time, but you respect how you showed up. That respect is valuable. It allows you to move forward without carrying doubt. Low standards create lingering questions. Could I have done more? Did I really try? Those questions drain energy. High standards answer them in advance. Raising your standards does not mean doing more things. It means doing fewer things well. It means choosing what matters and refusing to treat it casually. This focus prevents burnout. Burnout comes from scattered effort, not committed effort. Committed effort is clear. Clear effort is manageable. If you want to raise your standards, start small. Choose one area. Work, health, time, focus. Decide what is no longer acceptable. Then enforce it gently but consistently. Consistency matters more than intensity. Each day you honor a higher standard, it becomes easier. The mind adapts. What once felt demanding begins to feel normal. Normal becomes identity. Identity drives behavior automatically. This is the real power of standards. They change behavior without constant effort. They remove the need for motivation. They replace it with expectation. Expectation is stronger. Because expectation does not ask permission. It simply acts. As you raise your standards, life responds. Opportunities align with reliability. Confidence grows through consistency. Progress accelerates quietly. Not because you became extreme, but because you stopped accepting less. Raising your standards is not about proving anything to others. It is about honoring what you know you are capable of. When you do that, winning stops feeling distant. It becomes predictable. Because standards, once raised and maintained, shape everything that follows. And when your standards rise, your life has no choice but to rise with them. Chapter 13. Time is not waiting. Time is moving. It does not pause. It does not negotiate. Whether you act or hesitate, time keeps going. This truth is simple. It is also easy to ignore. Most people live as if time is flexible, as if there will always be another chance, another season, another moment to begin. That belief feels comforting. It is also dangerous. Time is not waiting. It is passing quietly, day by day, moment by moment. You do not feel time moving. That is why it is deceptive. There is no alarm when weeks disappear, no warning when years slip by. Life looks the same, until suddenly, it does not. People rarely regret being busy. They regret delaying what mattered. They regret waiting too long to start, too long to decide, too long to commit. Time creates distance between intention and action. The longer the gap, the harder it is to close. This is why starting feels heavier later. Not because the task changed, but because time added weight. Waiting has a compounding effect. A delayed decision today becomes a harder decision tomorrow. Momentum decays with time, confidence weakens, energy fades, doubt grows, time magnifies hesitation. This is not meant to create panic. It is meant to create clarity. Urgency does not mean rushing. It means respecting reality. Reality is this: you have less time than you think. Not because life is short, but because time is always in use. Every day you live is a day you cannot reuse. This does not mean you must act on everything. It means you must act on what matters. Many people confuse patience with delay. Patience is active. Delay is passive. Patience works while you wait. Delay waits without working. There is a big difference. Patience builds quietly. Delay erodes silently. Time rewards patience. It punishes delay. This is because patience includes action. You may move slowly, but you move. Delay avoids movement. Avoidance feels safe, but it steals future options. The longer you wait, the fewer choices you have. Options shrink with time. Energy changes. Responsibilities grow. Circumstances shift. What feels possible now may feel unrealistic later. This is not fear. It is fact. Time changes. Context. This is why action today is worth more than action tomorrow. Not because tomorrow is bad, but because today is available. People often say they are waiting for the right time. The right time is rarely found. It is created. Created by commitment. Created by consistency. Created by starting before everything feels aligned. Time does not reward readiness. It rewards movement. Movement signals intention. Intention combined with time creates results. Without movement, time does nothing for you. It simply passes. This is why two people can start in the same place and end up in very different lives. One respects time. The other assumes it. Respecting time does not mean obsession. It means awareness. Awareness that delay is a decision. Not choosing is still choosing. It moves you away from where you could have been. This is uncomfortable to hear, but it is freeing once accepted, because it returns control. You may not control time, but you control how you use today. Today is the only unit you can act on. Yesterday is memory. Tomorrow is projection. Today is opportunity. Most people live mentally in the future. They plan. They imagine that they intend. But intention without action is just delayed regret. Time listens to behavior, not promises. It responds to what you repeat. This is why small actions matter so much. A small action today is more powerful than a perfect plan later. Time multiplies what you do consistently. If you repeat avoidance, time multiplies stagnation. If you repeat effort, time multiplies progress. Time is neutral. It reflects your habits. This is an important realization. Time is not your enemy. It is your amplifier. What you feed it, it grows. Winners understand this. They do not rush, but they do not wait. They respect the present. They act while conditions are imperfect. They do not say, "One day I will." They say, "Today I begin." Beginning does not require certainty. It requires decision. Decision converts time into progress. Without decision, time stays empty. People often fear starting because they fear wasting time. Ironically, waiting wastes more. Action clarifies direction. Even a wrong step teaches you something. Waiting teaches nothing. Time spent learning through action is never wasted. Time spent waiting for confidence usually is. Another truth about time is this: it does not care how busy you are. Busy is not progress. Many people fill their days to avoid facing what matters. They confuse motion with movement. Movement has direction. Motion has distraction. Time rewards movement. Direction matters. This is why focus is important. You do not need to do everything. You need to do the right things consistently. Time will take care of the rest. There is no need to fear time passing. Fear does not help. Respect helps. Respect leads to action. Action leads to momentum. Momentum makes time work for you. If you feel behind, that feeling is information. It is not a judgment. It is a signal. A signal to begin now. Not aggressively. Not desperately. But deliberately. You cannot go back. But you can move forward. Forward is enough. Time does not require perfection. It responds to consistency. Start where you are, with what you have. Today. Tomorrow will come either way. The difference is whether it meets momentum or hesitation. Because time is not waiting. And once you truly understand that, you stop asking when you will start. You start now. That is how time becomes an ally, instead of a reminder of delay. That is how progress becomes possible. Not someday. Today. Chapter 14. Becoming relentless. Relentless does not mean extreme. It does not mean loud. It does not mean pushing without rest. Relentless means steady. It means you keep moving when excitement fades, when progress feels slow, when no one is watching. Most people quit quietly, not in one dramatic moment, but through small withdrawals. They skip a day, then another, then the habit disappears. Relentless people do not avoid difficulty. They expect it. Expectation changes response. When difficulty arrives, they do not panic. They do not question everything. They continue. Relentlessness is not intensity. It is refusal to stop. This is an important distinction. Intensity burns fast. Relentlessness burns long. Intensity relies on emotion. Relentlessness relies on identity. Identity says, "This is what I do." Not because it feels good, but because it is who I am. Becoming relentless is not about trying harder. It is about quitting less. Quitting is often disguised as logic. People say they need a break. They say timing is off. They say they will return later. Sometimes rest is necessary. Sometimes timing matters. But often, quitting is avoidance. Relentless people learn to tell the difference. They rest without disappearing. They slow down without stopping. This keeps momentum alive. Momentum does not require speed. It requires continuity. Continuity builds trust. Trust keeps you in motion, even when results lag behind effort. Results often lag. This delay discourages many people. They assume effort should pay off quickly. When it does not, they question the process. Relentless people trust the delay. They understand compounding. Compounding is invisible. At first, nothing seems to change. Then suddenly everything changes. That moment only arrives for those who stayed. Relentlessness also changes how failure feels. Failure becomes expected, not feared. When failure happens, relentless people do not personalize it. They analyze it. They adjust. They continue. This removes drama. Drama drains energy. Relentlessness conserves energy by avoiding emotional extremes. No celebration when things go well. No collapse when things go poorly. Just progress. This steadiness creates resilience. Resilience is not toughness. It is recovery speed. How quickly do you return to action after a setback? Relentless people return quickly. They do not wait for confidence to rebuild. They rebuild confidence through action. Action is the fastest way back. Another trait of relentlessness is patience. Not passive patience. Active patience. Active patience. Active patience. Keeps working while waiting for results. This is hard. The mind wants proof. It wants reassurance. Relentless people work without it. They trust process over mood. They understand that motivation is unreliable. But systems are dependable. Systems carry effort forward when emotion disappears. This is why relentlessness looks boring. It is not dramatic. It is repetitive. The same actions, the same standards, the same commitment, day after day. Most people want novelty. Relentless people want results. Results require repetition. Repetition builds skill. Skill builds efficiency. Efficiency builds confidence. Confidence built this way is calm. It does not shout. It does not rush. It simply continues. Relentlessness also requires boundaries. You cannot chase everything. You cannot react to every distraction. Relentless people protect focus. They say no often. Not to people, but to impulses. Impulse breaks rhythm. Rhythm sustains progress. This is why discipline matters so much here. Discipline protects relentlessness. Without discipline, effort becomes emotional. With discipline, effort becomes automatic. Automatic effort reduces friction. Reduced friction makes persistence easier. This is the hidden advantage. Relentlessness feels hard at the beginning. Then it feels normal. Normal becomes identity. Identity removes effort. What once required willpower becomes habit. At that point, stopping feels strange. This is where many breakthroughs happen. Not because effort increased, but because quitting stopped. Most success is not about doing more. It is about stopping less. This applies to everything. Learning, health, work, relationships. Consistency compounds everywhere. Relentlessness also simplifies decision-making. You no longer ask, should I continue? You continue. This removes doubt. Doubt is exhausting. Without doubt, energy is conserved. Energy can be used for execution. Execution produces progress. Progress reinforces identity. This loop sustains itself. Becoming relentless does not mean ignoring signals. It means interpreting them correctly. Fatigue means adjust, not quit. Boredom means refine, not abandon. Resistance means growth is near, not danger. Relentless people read signals accurately. They do not overreact. They stay composed. Composition under pressure is rare. It separates those who last from those who flash briefly. Relentlessness also builds credibility. When you show up consistently, people notice. Trust forms. Opportunities appear. Not because you asked, but because reliability attracts attention. This is how momentum expands beyond you. Others begin to support what you sustain. But this only happens after you prove consistency. If you want to become relentless, start by deciding what you will not quit. Not everything. Just one thing that matters. Make the decision firm. Then remove excuses. Not emotionally. Structurally. Lower the barrier to action. Protect the habit. Adjust effort. But continue. Expect days where progress feels invisible. Those days are training. They teach endurance. Endurance is rare. Most people quit right before momentum accelerates. Relentless people pass that point. And once you pass it, stopping feels unnecessary. Because you are no longer chasing results. You are honoring identity. Identity is powerful. It carries you forward when motivation disappears. Becoming relentless is not about force. It is about commitment that outlasts feeling. Commitment that survives boredom. Commitment that moves through doubt. Commitment that does not require applause. Quiet commitment. That kind of commitment wins. Not fast, not flashy, but inevitably, because relentlessness does one thing better than anything else. It keeps you in the game, and staying in the game is how winning becomes unavoidable. Chapter 15. Decide today. Every meaningful change begins with one moment. A moment of decision. Not a perfect decision. Not a fully informed one. A clear one. Most people wait to decide. They wait for confidence. They wait for certainty. They wait for the right feeling. That waiting is the problem. Decisions do not come after confidence. Confidence comes after decisions. Indecision keeps life suspended. Nothing moves forward. Nothing improves. Deciding creates motion. Motion creates momentum. Decide today is not about pressure. It is about ownership. Ownership of where you are. Ownership of what comes next. Every day without a decision is still a decision. A decision to stay the same. That choice is quiet, but its consequences are loud. Time keeps moving. Opportunities shift. Energy changes. Life does not wait for clarity. It responds to action. Deciding today does not mean you must know the entire path. It means you stop avoiding the first step. There is usually one decision you already know you need to make. Start the habit. End the delay. Commit to consistency. Let go of the excuse. You already feel it. Ignoring that decision costs energy. More energy than making it. Unmade decisions create mental noise. They sit in the background. They drain focus. Decision creates relief. Even difficult decisions bring clarity. Clarity calms the mind. Once the mind is calm, action becomes possible. Decide today does not mean changing everything at once. It means choosing direction. Direction gives effort meaning. Without direction, effort scatters. With direction, small actions count. This is where many people misunderstand change. They think change requires motivation. It requires commitment. Motivation fades. Commitment holds. Commitment begins with a decision. When you decide, standards appear. You stop asking, should I act? You start asking, how will I act today? That shift simplifies everything. Simplicity reduces resistance. Resistance is what makes progress feel heavy. Decisions remove resistance by removing doubt. Doubt feeds hesitation. Hesitation feeds regret. Decision feeds movement. Movement feeds confidence. Confidence feeds consistency. Consistency creates results. This chain does not start with feeling ready. It starts with deciding. Many people wait for a better version of themselves to decide. That version is built through decisions. You do not decide because you are confident. You become confident because you decided. This truth is uncomfortable. It is also freeing. It means you can begin now, with uncertainty, with discomfort, with imperfect conditions. Decide today does not promise ease. It promises direction. Direction matters more than speed. Slow progress forward beats fast. Movement in circles. Decisions also end negotiation. Negotiation is exhausting. When nothing is decided, every day becomes a debate. Debates drain energy. Decisions conserve it. Once a decision is made, energy can be used for execution. Execution creates feedback. Feedback creates learning. Learning creates growth. Growth reshapes identity. Identity makes action automatic. This is how effort becomes natural. People often say they want change. What they want is change without commitment. That does not exist. Change demands choice. Choice requires courage. Courage is not confidence. It is action despite uncertainty. Deciding today is quiet. Courage. No announcement needed, no permission required. Just alignment. Alignment between what you know and what you do. That alignment builds integrity. Integrity builds self-respect. Self-respect sustains effort. Effort compounds over time. Decide today also closes the door on excuses. Excuses survive in uncertainty. Once direction is chosen, excuses lose their power. You may adjust pace. You may refine strategy, but the direction stays. Direction anchors you on difficult days. It reminds you why you started. Decide today is not about urgency. It is about responsibility. Responsibility for the next step. Not the entire future. Just the next step. That is enough. You cannot decide yesterday. You cannot decide tomorrow. You can only decide now. Now is not perfect, but it is available. Make the decision simple. One habit, one commitment, one standard. Then act, not flawlessly, just consistently. Let action teach you. Let repetition shape you. The future does not require perfection. It requires commitment. Commitment begins with a decision. Decide today, because waiting has already taken enough. And winning does not begin someday. It begins the moment you decide. Conclusion. Winning is a daily choice. Winning is not a single moment. It is not a breakthrough. It is not a burst of motivation. Winning is a daily choice. A quiet choice. A repeated choice. A choice made when no one is watching. Throughout this book, one truth has stayed consistent. You do not win by waiting. You win by acting. Not when you feel ready. Not when motivation appears. But when you choose to move anyway. Every chapter pointed to the same principle from a different angle. Motivation is unreliable. Discipline is steady. Clarity follows movement. Confidence follows action. Ordinary days matter. Waiting has a cost. You become what you repeat. Standards shape behavior. Time keeps moving. Responsibility creates power. None of these ideas work once. They work daily. That is the point. Winning is not dramatic. It is consistent. It is choosing to show up on low-energy days. It is honoring non-negotiables. It is choosing pain now instead of regret. Later, it is deciding today, and then deciding again tomorrow. This is where many people struggle. They want a finish line. They want a moment where effort stops. There is no such moment. But that is not bad news. Because once winning becomes a daily choice, it becomes lighter. You stop chasing motivation. You stop negotiating with emotion. You rely on standards. You rely on structure. Structure carries you when feeling fades. Daily choice removes pressure. You are no longer trying to change your entire life at once. You are simply choosing how you act today. Today is manageable. Today is actionable. Today is enough. Most people lose momentum because they think too far ahead. They overwhelm themselves with the future. Winners stay present. They ask simple questions. What is the next right action? What standard am I honoring today? These questions guide behavior. Behavior builds identity. Identity sustains effort. This is how winning becomes predictable. Not easy, but reliable. There will still be hard days. Days of doubt. Days of fatigue. Those days do not disqualify you. They are part of the process. Winning is not the absence of struggle. It is the refusal to stop. You do not need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. You do not need to feel confident. You need to keep moving. You do not need motivation. You need commitment. Commitment shows up even when emotion does not. That is what separates intention from results. If there is one thing to carry forward, let it be this. Do not ask if you feel like doing the work. Ask if the work aligns with who you are becoming. Identity-driven action is powerful. When action matches identity, effort feels lighter. Over time, winning stops feeling forced. It feels natural. Not because life got easier, but because you got steadier. This steadiness compounds. Days stack, habits lock in. Confidence grows quietly. One day you look back and realize something changed. Not overnight, but undeniably. That change was not luck. It was not inspiration. It was choice. Repeated choice. Daily choice. Winning is not reserved for the gifted. It is built by the consistent, by those who act on ordinary days, by those who move without motivation, by those who decide, then follow through. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply one decision away from moving forward again. Make that decision today. Then make it tomorrow. Then again the next day. That is how momentum is built. That is how identity is formed. That is how winning becomes inevitable. Not someday, daily.